You ever have one of those days where everything feels a little too normal? That was me. Tuesday morning. Toast burned on one side, coffee maker sputtering like an old smoker, and my wife, Kara, half dancing to an old pop song in the kitchen. She hummed the chorus and handed me a travel mug like we were still the couple from 5 years ago. You know, the ones who used to race grocery carts in the parking lot and whisper movie quotes to each other at dinner parties. That couple. Big meeting today? She asked, pulling her hair into a bun with one hand and texting with the other. Yeah, I replied, zipping up my jacket. Client review. She kissed me on the cheek, light, too light, and smiled in that casual way women do when they've already made a decision they haven't told you about yet. I didn't know then, but that was the last day I left the house believing I still had a marriage. Let me rewind a little. I'm Aaron, 39, a consultant for companies trying to scale without falling apart. Funny job title, huh? Scaling without collapse. Ironic, considering my home life was doing exactly the opposite. Kara was always the charismatic one. Worked in brand development. Read. Got paid to make companies seem more likable than they actually were. She had that kind of energy that made waiters remember her name, and exes sinned, just checking in text 6 years too late. And me? I was dependable. Not boring, just predictable. The guy who always knows where the extra batteries are. The first sign came wrapped in something small. I found a receipt. One of those thin, curled ones from a hotel cafe. The timestamp said 11:42 a.m. last Friday. It wasn't the hotel part that got me. It was the name under the guest signature, Ms. Cara Bellamy. She told me she was at her friend Julie's baby shower. Julie lives an hour away and doesn't drink. But there it was. Pinot Noir, Cobb salad, creme brulee. For two. Still, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Julie needed a little luxury. Maybe I was being paranoid. I mean, people do drink wine at baby showers, right? The next day, she came home with a new scarf. Deep green. Not her color. I asked where she got it. Oh, Julie gave it to me. Said it didn't suit her. Julie wears nothing but green. Kara didn't flinch. Just shrugged. You remember that? I remember everything, I said, more to myself than to her. And I do. I remember that first winter we spent in our tiny walk-up. I remember the fight we had over IKEA shelves. I remember the way she cried when her dad passed, curled up against me like I was the only solid thing in the world. That's the thing about remembering everything. You can tell when someone else starts forgetting. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that I got my confirmation. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand while she was in the shower. I glanced at the screen out of habit. The message preview read, "Last night was everything. Can't wait for Thursday." No name. Just a number. Not saved in her contacts. That was the moment I stopped breathing for half a second too long. When she came out of the shower, towel wrapped like a halo, I smiled and handed her the phone. She smiled back, kissed me on the forehead, and said, "What would I do without you?" I wish I had said, "Lie a little better." But I didn't. Not yet. Because some betrayals don't hit you like a slap. They land quietly. Like a snowflake on your skin, melting before you even realize it stung. And that's where this story begins, with a smile, a lie, and a snowflake that never stopped falling. I didn't confront her. Not then. No, I did what any man does when his stomach is full of suspicion and pride won't let him call it what it is, I observed. I became a quiet collector of patterns. Phone face down more often. New perfume. That one song by James Blake suddenly playing on repeat in her car. She'd never liked James Blake. Said he made depression sound expensive. And Thursdays? They got suspicious fast. Strategy nights, she called them. Always at Everett's place. Everett, their team's creative director, a guy who once said, "My relationships don't last past brunch," and meant it as a compliment to himself. I played along. I even started packing her snacks. Dried mango, trail mix, a little note. "Don't forget I love you." The note stopped after the third Thursday. Instead, I drove downtown and parked across from the Hadley Hotel. Around 9:15, just as traffic thinned and the city exhaled, I saw her. Kara, in that deep green scarf. Laughing. With a man I didn't recognize. He opened the door for her. She touched his back as she passed. Not the touch of a friend. The kind of touch you use when you've memorized someone. I didn't take pictures. I didn't need them. The image was burned in. I didn't follow them inside. Didn't knock on their hotel room door. Instead, I went home. Sat on the couch. Ordered Thai food. Watched a cooking show I didn't care about with the volume too low and the lights all off. When she came back later, she smelled like white wine and guilt. How was the strategy session? I asked, not looking up. She paused, just for a second. Long enough to hear the trap, but not long enough to avoid it. Exhausting, she said. We ran over. Didn't even get through half the campaign. I nodded, like that made perfect sense. And then I did something unexpected. I kissed her. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to know if she'd flinch. She did. Slight. Barely noticeable. But real. I stood there for a while after she went to bed. The refrigerator hummed like it was keeping secrets too. The next morning, I made her eggs. Over easy, extra pepper, just the way she liked. I poured her coffee, set the table, and added a sticky note to her mug. Everett doesn't wear cologne. She read it. She didn't say a word. Just left it there next to the egg she didn't finish. That night, I moved all my documents into a locked drawer. Bought a burner phone. Opened a private email account. Started checking the state laws on no-fault divorce. Not because I was ready, but because I was learning to be. You see, people think betrayal is the moment someone lies. But the truth is, betrayal is a process. Slow. Drip-fed. Like poison in a cup of tea. And Kara? She'd been sipping it for months. I hadn't lost her to a man. I'd lost her to a version of herself that believed I was just the safe bet. And safe bets never make your heart race. But I wasn't angry yet. Not really. Anger, my friend, comes later. Right after the silence breaks. And trust me, it always does. She started staying out later. First it was meetings ran long. Then it became networking drinks. And by the time she dropped the word launch party, I stopped asking. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her PR handler. Smile, wave, nod for the cameras, and clean up the mess after the spotlight moves on. She'd come home with perfect alibis and no lipstick smudges, and that was the problem. She was too careful. Like someone who had practiced the story in the mirror until it didn't sound like a lie anymore. One night, she came back humming. That's when I knew she was gone. Humming meant she was happy. Light, loose, not thinking about bills or meetings or the man she left sitting on the couch with a cold dinner and a colder heart. She walked past me like I was a lamp. No, hi, babe. No, sorry I'm late. I sat there watching her move through the house like she still owned it, but I was the ghost. Then came the dinner party. Her friends. Her coworkers. Her rules. I was the accessory in the room, her husband, the loyal golden retriever in a sweater. Someone poured me wine and asked how I could possibly be this calm working from home all day. Kara cut in. He alphabetizes his vinyl records when he's stressed. Laughter. Mine was delayed. Then someone asked about kids. Oh, she chirped. Aaron still thinks we should wait until life slows down. He's not great with change. And just like that, I was on the auction block. Up for ridicule. Getting picked apart by people who had never once asked what I wanted. I stood up to refill my glass and caught my reflection in the mirror above the bar cart. I looked like a man being erased in real time. Later that night, I asked her if she even wanted to be married anymore. She didn't even blink. Can we not do this right now? She said, brushing her hair out like she was swatting away an annoying fly. It's been a long day. That was her answer. Not a yes. Not a no. Just that bland dismissal people give when they're too deep into plan B to pretend plan A still matters. So I stopped trying to fix it. Instead, I started collecting. Receipts. Dates. Login history. Hotel names. The messages she forgot to delete. The backup phone I found in her gym bag that wasn't dusty enough to be real. All of it. I became my own private investigator. And I was a better one than she gave me credit for. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because what she didn't know. The quiet ones aren't weak. We're just building the kind of silence that can't be ignored. And when I spoke, she was going to hear every unspoken word I'd swallowed for the last year. There's a certain stillness right before a storm. Not the cinematic kind with thunder and wind tearing through shutters. No. The kind that makes the air thick, heavy, like something's watching. That's what our kitchen felt like on a Thursday morning in late November. Kara was making avocado toast like the world hadn't shifted. Her phone buzzed, screen down, as usual. I watched her hands, not shaking, not rushed. Calm. Too calm. Like someone who didn't think she was living with a man who already knew. She caught me staring. You good? She asked without looking up. I'm fine, I lied. My voice was steady, but the lie tasted like pennies. You seem tense. She sliced the toast diagonally. Always diagonally. Like geometry would make betrayal more palatable. I said nothing. Just grabbed my jacket and left before she could read the restraint in my eyes. That day I didn't go to work. Instead, I drove to the hotel, their hotel, and sat in the parking garage like some shadow version of myself. I wasn't spying. I didn't need to. I'd already seen the records. The charges. The timestamped check-ins. Room 805. Booked every Thursday under the name James Corbin. Classy alias, James. Sounded like a man who wore expensive socks and called women darling without irony. I didn't go in. I didn't need that visual. But sitting in that car, feeling the weight of knowing, I realized something I hadn't let myself accept until then. This wasn't an affair. It was a replacement. She hadn't made a mistake. She'd made a decision. That evening, I got home before her. I lit a candle, lavender, her favorite, and played that indie playlist she always put on when she needed to unwind. I cooked. Not a trap. Just habit. I guess my brain hadn't caught up to my heart yet. She came in humming. Again. Coat in one hand, shopping bag in the other. Designer. Not her usual. Something smells amazing, she said, toeing off her boots. I nodded. Pasta. With the sun-dried tomatoes you like. She leaned in to kiss my cheek. I flinched. She paused. What's that about? I know, I said. Her eyes narrowed, not in confusion. In calculation. Know what? I didn't raise my voice. Didn't wave receipts or drop hotel names. I just said, James Corbin. Room 805. Thursdays. Her face didn't crumble. She just stopped. Like someone hit pause on the performance. You don't have to say anything, I cut in. I'm not here to argue. I just want honesty. She pulled out a chair and sat. Her hands folded neatly on the table like we were negotiating a merger. How long? I asked. Carr exhaled. 6 months. Maybe a little more. I nodded. And before that? A beat. There were others. But they didn't mean anything. That sentence hit harder than if she'd thrown a punch. They didn't mean anything. Guess that makes me feel better, I muttered, more to myself. She looked at me then, really looked. Maybe for the first time in a long time. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said. At first, it was just something different. Something exciting. I didn't want to hurt you. Good intentions, I said, usually come before bad decisions. She swallowed hard. She stopped herself. You stopped seeing me, Aaron. You were here, but you weren't with me. I felt invisible. And cheating made you feel seen? She looked away. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, our neighbor was trimming his hedge. The world, stubbornly unchanged. I'm leaving, I said, flatly. Her head snapped toward me. What? I'm moving out. You don't want this marriage. You just didn't want to say it first. You're overreacting. No, I'm reacting exactly enough. You've been gone for months. You just forgot to pack. Her voice cracked for the first time. I didn't mean to fall out of love with you. That's the thing, I said quietly. You didn't fall. You walked. I didn't slam a door. Didn't yell or throw a suitcase down the stairs. I just packed what I needed, the essentials. Toothbrush. Laptop. A hoodie she once called tragically cozy. I grabbed my box of vinyls. Alphabetized, of course. She sat on the edge of the bed, watching like someone watching the credits roll on a film they never expected to end. Is this it? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. No, I said, turning at the door. This was it. What's next? That's mine. I slept on my brother's couch that night, listening to the radiator hiss and pop like it was telling me secrets. That's when the text came. 11:42 p.m. You didn't even try to fight for me. I stared at it for a long time. My thumbs hovered over the screen. I had 100 replies ready, but I sent none. Because some battles aren't worth fighting. Especially when the war was over before you even knew it started. What she didn't know. I was fighting. Just not for her. I was fighting for the version of me that still believed in loyalty. In quiet love. In shared playlists and inside jokes and mornings spent reading in bed. I was fighting for a man who deserved better than to be the backup plan. And for the first time in a long time, I was winning. I moved into a sublet above a bakery. The kind of place that smells like sugar and childhood, but is barely big enough for a man and his regrets. The ceiling creaked when I walked, the radiator made threatening noises at midnight, and the faucet took 5 full seconds to decide between hot and cold. Still, it was mine, and it was quiet. No pretending. No lies pretending to be silence. Kara didn't contact me for 3 days, which said more than if she'd called 20 times. On day 4, she sent a message. Let me explain. Please. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I'd finally stopped making space for words that came too late. You'd be surprised how many people disappear the second you stop orbiting around their comfort. I stopped showing up at mutual events, stopped liking her posts, stopped playing my role as the good guy who took the high road. Funny thing is, when you stop explaining yourself, people have to start telling the truth to themselves. And some folks can't survive that kind of mirror. I saw her once, by accident. 2 weeks after I left. She was with him. The man, James, at a bookstore cafe downtown. She laughed at something he said, and I swear it sounded like the version of her I hadn't heard in years. That laugh used to be mine. Now it was rented. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did, and chose not to. That night, I got a voicemail. Her voice was soft, shaky. I keep looking for you in rooms I walk into, even when I know you're not there. I don't know how to stop. I deleted it. Not because it didn't move me, but because it did. And I couldn't afford to be moved. Instead, I focused on the small things. Fixed the broken closet door in the sublet. Rearranged my books alphabetically because I'm still me. Went back to the gym. Started eating meals that didn't come with sadness as a side dish. Then the envelope came. No return address. Just my name, handwritten. Inside, a wedding invitation. Hers. Cara Evelyn Bellamy and James Corbin Lister invite you to join them in celebration of love and new beginnings. Date: 7 weeks from now. Location: a vineyard upstate. The one we'd visited on our second anniversary. I didn't drop the invitation. Didn't tear it in half. I just stood there with it in my hand, heart steady, like a man holding an obituary written in cursive. New beginnings. Like I never existed. And there it was. Not rage. Not sorrow. Clarity. She hadn't just ended our marriage. She'd replaced it. Same venue. New groom. Like all she needed to fix the glitch in her fairy tale was a different face next to hers in the pictures. I sat down. Let the air leave my lungs slow. No crying. No fists on the table. But something broke. Not loud. Not shattering. Just the sound of a door closing inside me. And I knew then. I wasn't going to crash her wedding. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't going to burn it all down in a blaze of drama. No. I was going to give her exactly what she wanted. A clean break. The illusion of grace. The kind of revenge that doesn't show up in headlines, but in silence. The kind that doesn't need an audience. Because the worst thing you can do to someone who treated you like background noise is leave them with the echo. A week later, she tried to FaceTime me. I declined. 3 days after that, I got a message from her sister. I don't know what happened, but she's unraveling. I almost replied. Almost asked if she still hummed while chopping onions. Almost asked if she laughed in her sleep the way she used to with me. But I didn't. Instead, I wrote back. Tell her I wish her all the happiness she ran toward. That was it. Final. Clean. The kind of goodbye that doesn't slam doors, it just stops holding them open. I watched her wedding day unfold from a distance, thanks to mutual friends who forgot how screenshots work. She wore the same earrings I gave her on our 5th anniversary. He wore the same grin I used to. They looked happy. Or at least they looked like people who practiced the pose enough. And me? I didn't feel like the loser of the story anymore. I felt like the man who got out before the rot hit the foundation. And that's worth more than revenge. Because healing, real healing, is quiet. And mine was finally beginning. They say closure's a myth. I used to think that was just something bitter people said when they didn't get their apology. But now, I think closure's real. It just doesn't always show up in the way you expect. Sometimes it's not a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it's a text you don't answer. A name you delete without a second thought. A wedding invitation you return to sender without opening. I never RSVP'd to Cara's big day. I thought about it. Don't get me wrong. Not out of longing, but out of curiosity. Like staring at a car wreck and wondering how the driver managed to flip something so stable, so ordinary, so familiar, into a pile of burning glass and twisted metal. But I didn't go. Instead, I spent that weekend at a lake cabin I'd visited once as a kid. No cell service. Just the sound of water and wind and the occasional snap of wood in the fireplace. I brought one bag, one bottle of whiskey, and one book I never opened. That Saturday night, while she was probably dancing under string lights and pretending her world hadn't been scorched and rebuilt on someone else's timeline, I sat on a wooden deck and watched the sky. It was quiet, but not empty. There was a fullness to it. A stillness that didn't demand anything from me. Not explanations. Not forgiveness. Not pretending to be okay. Just being. I think that's when it hit me. I was finally alone. But I wasn't lonely anymore. Back in town, the whispers started. Not the dramatic kind. Just the slow, curious ones that slither through small circles. She remarried already? Weren't they just? I thought he moved out. And eventually, have you heard from him? That's the one she must have hated the most. Because for the first time in our whole relationship, I became the mystery. Not her. I wasn't the ghosted one anymore. I was the ghost. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't disappear to punish her. That would imply I was still revolving around her. No, I vanished because I wanted peace, not the performance of it. The real, gritty, uninstagrammable kind. I started painting again. Badly. But it felt good to use my hands for something that wasn't holding on. I started running. A few miles every other morning, just me and the frost, and the sound of my own breathing getting a little stronger each day. I even joined one of those men's discussion groups. Yeah, I know how it sounds. But it was the first time in years I sat in a circle of guys and said, she left. She replaced me. But I'm still here. And no one flinched. No one offered cliches. They just nodded. One guy clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're not broken. You're just not finished yet." That line stuck with me. Not finished yet. But life? Life has a sense of humor. Just when you start to feel whole again, the past shows up uninvited. It started small. A photo in my inbox. No subject line. No message. Just an attachment. It was Kara, sitting alone on a bench by the lake where I'd spent that weekend. Same bench we used to sit on when she said she couldn't picture growing old with anyone else. Now she was there alone. That was the first breadcrumb. Then came the text from a number I didn't recognize. He's not who I thought he was. No name. No context. Didn't need one. I knew that tone. It was the voice of someone who'd finally finished their fairy tale and realized the prince had allergies and commitment issues and bad credit. Then came the late-night call. I let it ring out. Voicemail. I just need to hear your voice. Not to fix anything. Just to remember who I used to be. I didn't delete that one. I didn't play it more than once, either. I just kept it. Like a souvenir from a museum I never plan on visiting again. Then one night, I walked past the old bakery building, the one I'd moved into after leaving. Someone else lives there now. Curtains drawn. Light in the kitchen. It hit me how quickly our stories become someone else's square footage. And that's when I got the letter. Handwritten. Pages. No return address, but I recognized the slant of every letter. Kara. She wrote about how fast it all moved. How marrying James felt like hitting fast forward on a movie she didn't understand but didn't want to pause. How she kept trying to feel the things she used to feel when she laughed with me at midnight over cheap wine and burned popcorn. But it never came back. The part that stuck with me was this. I didn't just miss you. I missed the version of me that only existed with you. That's the thing people don't talk about when they leave. They don't realize they're not just walking away from you. They're walking away from who they were with you. And sometimes, that version doesn't come back. She ended the letter with this. If you ever want to meet again, even just to say the things we never said, I'll be at the lake. Saturdays. Noon. I'll wait 10 minutes. No pressure. Just a bench. Just a maybe. That was 2 Saturdays ago. I didn't go. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally knew what she didn't. Closure isn't something you meet at a bench. Closure is when you stop needing them to understand why they lost you. 3 Saturdays passed. I didn't go. I didn't drive by the lake. Didn't walk the trail. Didn't peek through the trees like some coward with nostalgia in his shoes. I stayed right where I was on my porch, coffee in hand, letting the breeze remind me what moving on felt like. Not freedom. Not revenge. Just stillness. Like the kind you feel after a storm has finally given up. But here's the thing about ghosts. They don't just fade. They echo. The second letter came without warning. No stamp this time. Hand-delivered. I found it folded neatly under the wiper of my car. Cream envelope. No name. Just, for when you're ready. I wasn't. But I read it anyway. She said she wasn't married anymore. Not officially. Not yet. But functionally. Over. Turns out, James wasn't the one. He was the one who knew how to perform for the crowd. Just like her. Until the performance stopped being fun. They lasted for months. For months before the cracks started showing. Before he stopped opening doors and started opening her texts without asking. Before the spontaneous trips turned into silent dinners. Before she realized she hadn't married a man, she'd hired a mirror. He didn't know me, she wrote. He just knew how to be seen with me. That line made me close the letter. Because I knew that version of her too well. I didn't plan to go. I didn't pack a bag, Didn't charge my phone. I just started driving one evening when the air was thick and my thoughts were louder than the road noise. I didn't even know where I was headed until the trees got taller and the roads narrowed into silence. I pulled into the gravel lot near the lake at dusk. The bench was empty. Of course it was. I hadn't told her I'd come. I sat anyway, watched the wind tickle the water, saw a few birds playing tag across the surface. The same birds we used to watch in silence when words felt too heavy. Back then, it was enough to just sit, just breathe near each other. Now, even the silence between us had sharp edges. I don't know how long I stayed. Maybe an hour. Long enough to feel like I had honored the part of myself that needed to know I could return and choose not to stay. Then I heard tires crunching behind me. A car door. Footsteps. I didn't turn around. Not until I heard her voice. You came. It wasn't triumphant. It wasn't hopeful. It was surprised. Like she didn't think I still existed outside her memory. I turned. Saw her standing there in a denim jacket, hair in a loose knot. She looked older. Not in a bad way. Just real. No filters. No angles. So did I? I didn't come for you, I said softly. I came for me. She nodded. Sat beside me, but not too close. I thought if I waited long enough, maybe. She trailed off. I'm not the same man who left, I said. I know. And you're not the woman I married. She swallowed. I know that too. We sat in silence again. This time, it wasn't comforting. It was heavy. Final. The kind of silence that hangs after someone says goodbye without moving their lips. She pulled something from her pocket. A small box. Laid it on the bench between us. It was my wedding ring. I hadn't even noticed it was missing. She must have found it in the drawer I forgot to empty. I looked at it. Didn't touch it. Then I stood up. I forgive you, I said. Not because she deserved it, but because I did. I walked away without looking back. Months passed. The house sold. I signed the papers with a calm hand. She didn't show up. Just sent her signature through a lawyer with a polite note. Thank you for not making this harder. She still didn't understand. It wasn't hard anymore. I moved again. Farther out this time. Small house. Big yard. A garden I planted just to see if I could make something grow from nothing. Turns out, I could. The men's group disbanded after a while. Life pulled us all in different directions. But I stayed in touch with one guy, Marcus. Divorced. 2 kids. Said something to me one day that stuck. Don't let her live rent-free in your chest, man. That space is prime real estate. I started filling it with better tenants. Little joys. Honest friendships. Peace without permission. And then came the news. She'd moved to the coast. Took a job rebranding a tech company. Her name was popping up again on LinkedIn. New bio. New look. New narrative. She was reinventing herself for the 3rd time in 2 years. And me? I didn't feel anything. Not pride. Not pity. Just distance. That was the real win. She no longer had a key to anything in me. And that's when I knew. The story was over. People ask me sometimes if I ever wanted revenge. Like, real revenge. Something big. Dramatic. The kind of thing you read about in Reddit threads where the ex ends up crying in a supermarket aisle holding expired yogurt, realizing she messed up. But the truth? That's not revenge. That's theater. The only revenge that matters is living well, quietly, fully, without needing her to notice. It's waking up one day and realizing you haven't thought about her in weeks. It's going out with friends and laughing, deep, belly laughs that aren't covering pain. It's finding someone who holds your hand without needing a camera nearby. Someone who doesn't just see you, but chooses you. Every day, without apology, without backup plans, without disappearing into someone else's arms when the spark dims. Because real love doesn't need constant fireworks. It just needs presence. The kind I gave freely. The kind she mistook for convenience. So no, I didn't get revenge. I got better. And in the quiet of my new life, with a mug of black coffee and a dog that thinks I hung the moon, I can tell you this. I don't miss the woman who broke me. I miss the man I used to be before her. But I love the man I became after. And that's the ending. Not loud. Not bitter. Just true.